Okay, so I jumped into Death Stranding, and honestly, at first I was like, what am I even doing? You're basically this delivery guy just walking around this crazy landscape carrying tons of stuff and trying not to fall over, which is way harder than it sounds. There are these weird invisible monsters that try to grab you, and you have to hold your breath to avoid them, which is kind of creepy. I will say the story is pretty wild and the world is really interesting to explore, but it definitely gets a bit repetitive. I mean, some might call this game a walking simulator, which it probably is, and it might not be for everyone, as a lot of people might find it boring. But there's something about it that just kept me going, like I had to see what was next and where this crazy story was going. Plus, the graphics are insane and the soundtrack is amazing, so that definitely helped keep me hooked.
Opa, bora lá.
The place is coming down!
Okay.
Okay, so I finally got my hands on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and wow, this game is a wild ride from start to finish. You get to explore all these amazing locations like ancient temples and hidden cities, and the puzzles are really clever. I spent hours trying to figure some of them out. The story is super exciting too, with plenty of twists and turns that kept me guessing the whole time, plus the graphics are incredible. It actually feels like you're in a classic Indiana Jones movie. The combat can be a little clunky at times though, and I wish there were more enemy variety because after a while it starts to feel a bit repetitive.
Should have left this alone.
Yeah? Well, should have done a lot of things.
But honestly, those are just minor nitpicks in an otherwise awesome game. If you're a fan of Indiana Jones or just love a good action adventure, then you definitely need to check this one out. Okay, so I just finished playing Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown last week, and man, this game is fantastic. It totally takes me back to the old school Prince of Persia games with the awesome platforming and crazy traps, but it also has this really cool new art style that pops. The combat is super smooth too, with tons of different moves and combos to master, plus you can find all sorts of cool weapons and abilities as you explore. And the story is actually really engaging with some fun twists and turns. I got totally sucked in. I will say that some of the platforming challenges can be pretty tough, but that just makes it even more satisfying when you finally nail them. Honestly, I haven't had this much fun with a Prince of Persia game in years, so if you're looking for a challenging and rewarding action platformer, definitely give The Lost Crown a try. Black Myth Wukong is a visual masterpiece with next-level graphics and environments so detailed and atmospheric that I felt like I was exploring a living painting. And the combat is just as impressive because it's fast-paced and challenging, with a deep moveset that lets you unleash some seriously cool combos and transformations to outsmart your enemies. I especially loved experimenting with all the different ways to fight and figuring out which abilities worked best against different enemies. While the story could have been a bit more engaging and some of the boss fights were definitely tough as nails, those are honestly minor complaints in an otherwise incredible game that any fan of action RPGs or anyone who appreciates stunning visuals and challenging gameplay should definitely check out. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is seriously one of the most beautiful games I've ever played, and I'm not exaggerating when I say I've finished it 3 times already. Everything about it is just stunning, from the hand-painted art style to the incredible soundtrack, and the story is so emotional and captivating that I was hooked from beginning to end. You play as this little spirit named Ori, and you have to explore this huge world and solve all sorts of puzzles and fight enemies to save the forest. The movement and combat are so fluid and satisfying, and there are tons of abilities and upgrades to unlock, so it never gets boring. Honestly, the only bad thing I can say about this game is that it can be pretty challenging at times, and I definitely died a lot, but it was always worth it to see what was around the next corner. If you're looking for a game with a beautiful world, a touching story, and amazing gameplay, then you absolutely need to check out Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is seriously intense. I mean, seriously, this game is not for the faint of heart. The story is gripping, and the way it tackles mental health is really something else.
What have you done? Stop.
Please help!
You're right there with Senua, battling her inner demons, and the voices in her head are so realistic, it's actually kind of unsettling. The combat is brutal too, and you really have to be strategic to survive. I found myself holding my breath during some of the bigger fights, but what really blew me away were the visuals. The environments are stunning, and the way they blend reality with Senua's perceptions is just incredible. I found myself stopping to admire the scenery all the time, which I don't usually do in games. Honestly, Hellblade 2 is more than just a game, it's an experience. It's definitely challenging and emotionally draining, but it's also incredibly rewarding. If you're looking for something different and thought-provoking, then this is the game for you. Space Marine 2 is an absolute blast from start to finish. It's everything I wanted in a sequel with even bigger battles and even more satisfying combat. Ripping and tearing through hordes of orcs with an arsenal of awesome weapons never gets old, and the new jump pack adds a whole new level of mobility and mayhem to the gameplay. Plus, the story is surprisingly engaging with some epic moments that really got me pumped up. Now the environments can feel a bit repetitive at times, and the AI isn't always the sharpest, but honestly, those are minor gripes in an otherwise action-packed experience. If you're looking for a game that lets you unleash your inner badass and just have fun, then Space Marine 2 is definitely worth checking out. Okay, so Baldur's Gate 3? This is probably my most played game on this list, and I think it's actually one of the best games of the last 5 years. The story just pulls you in and doesn't let go with these amazing characters you meet along the way, and the world is massive and so much fun to explore. You can wander around for hours and hours and still find something new, and the open world is packed with secrets and surprises. It's got that classic Dungeons and Dragons feel, but with really cool modern graphics. And the combat is turn-based, which I know can be a turn-off for some people, but honestly, it just works perfectly and gives you time to really think about your moves. I just love how much freedom you have in this game to create your own character and story. Stellar Blade is this fast-paced action game where you're basically a super warrior trying to save the planet, and the combat is really the highlight, with these stylish moves and combos that make you feel like a pro, and the game really nails that feeling. The story is interesting, but it can get a bit predictable, and you might see some plot twists coming from a mile away. The side missions sometimes feel like they're just there to fill time. But if you're into games where you can just jump in and have fun with cool fights and a solid main character, you'll enjoy Stellar Blade, even if it doesn't always throw you for a loop. Okay, so I finally got around to playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And let me tell you, it was like stepping back into a world I knew and loved, but with a whole new perspective. Remember all those awesome moments from the original? Well, they're back, but with even more depth and detail. And the story goes in some crazy directions that I totally didn't see coming. I got so attached to the characters this time around, like they felt like old friends. And the combat kept me on my toes with all the different strategies and abilities you can use. Honestly, I did get a little lost in those massive dungeons sometimes, and the story kind of dragged in a few places, but overall it was an amazing experience that brought back so many memories and made me fall in love with Final Fantasy VII all over again. If you're a fan of the original, you owe it to yourself to check out Rebirth.
Bring it!
Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl is finally here, and it was definitely worth the wait. This game is a hardcore survival experience that throws you into a bleak and unforgiving world where danger lurks around every corner. The atmosphere is incredible with stunning graphics and sound design that really immerse you in the zone. I loved exploring the eerie abandoned buildings and scavenging for supplies while trying to avoid deadly anomalies and mutated creatures. The gunplay is intense and the survival mechanics are challenging but rewarding. It's not a game for everyone, though, as it can be pretty unforgiving and you'll need to be patient and strategic to survive. But if you're looking for a truly immersive and unforgettable survival experience, then Stalker 2 is definitely worth checking out. Cuphead is this super cool game I've been playing on my Switch, and it's seriously one of the most unique and challenging games I've ever experienced. The whole game looks like an old-timey cartoon, which is really awesome, and the music is just perfect for it. But don't let the cute looks fool you because this game is tough, like really tough. You basically run around and shoot stuff, but the bosses are insane, and you'll die a lot before you finally beat them. It's totally worth it though, because the feeling of satisfaction when you finally take down a boss is amazing. Plus, they added this DLC called The Delicious Last Course with a new character and a bunch of new bosses, and it's even harder than the original game. If you're looking for a challenge and you love classic animation, then you definitely need to check out Cuphead. Silent Hill 2 Remake is a scary adventure game where you go back to a foggy town to find someone you lost and things get really weird. Now, personally, I love horror games, although this might not be for everyone. The town looks amazing, it's super detailed, and the monsters are really creepy. They made the old game look new, and that's cool, but sometimes you just walk around a lot looking for clues, and it can feel a little slow, like you're just wandering. But then Pyramid Head shows up, and everything gets intense. The story is still really good, and it makes you think about what's really happening. Some parts are super scary, some parts are just sad, and it's all very emotional. If you played the original game, you'll probably like this. It's a good remake, and it keeps you guessing until the end, and that's what a good scary game should do. Okay, so Celeste is a game that I've heard a ton about and finally decided to try out. Now, it might not be for everyone because the graphics are kinda simple, and it's definitely a challenging platformer. I'm talking jumping puzzles that'll really test your patience and make you want to throw your controller across the room. I put in a good 5 or 6 hours, and while I didn't finish it, I get why people love it. The controls are super tight and responsive, which is awesome because when you mess up, you know it's your fault. The story is actually pretty interesting too, dealing with stuff like anxiety and overcoming your fears. Plus, the music is seriously amazing and really sets the mood. If you're into those hardcore platformers that make you work for every victory and you don't mind the retro look, Celeste might be right up your alley. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden is an action RPG that puts you in the shoes of two ghost hunters, Red and Antea, as they explore a cursed town filled with spirits and tough choices. The combat is a fun mix of swordplay and supernatural powers, where you switch between Red's physical attacks and Antea's ghostly abilities, making every fight feel different. But what really stands out is the story. It's emotional, full of difficult decisions, and actually changes depending on what you do. The world is dark and atmospheric, with creepy locations and a haunting soundtrack that pulls you in. Some parts of the game can feel a bit slow, and the combat takes time to get used to, but the way it blends action with storytelling makes it a really unique experience. If you love RPGs that actually make you think, this one is worth playing. Okay, so Sakuna of Rice and Ruin is definitely one of the coolest games I've played in a while. And it's not just a side-scroller, even though it kind of looks like one at first. You play as this spoiled harvest goddess named Sakuna, who gets banished to this island with a bunch of humans, and you have to fight demons and grow rice to survive. The combat is super satisfying, with all these cool combos and weapons you can unlock, and the rice farming is surprisingly in-depth and relaxing. Like, I actually learned a lot about how rice is grown, which is kind of weird, but also really cool. The story is really engaging too with these awesome characters you meet along the way, and the whole game just looks gorgeous with its hand-drawn art style and beautiful environments. Honestly, the only downside I could find was that the platforming can be a little bit finicky sometimes, and the crafting system is kind of complicated, but overall, this game is a total gem. If you've liked the video so far and want to support a growing channel, then please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for more videos like this one. Empire of the Ants is a strategy game where you build and manage your own ant colony. It's like you're running a tiny ant city in a big forest. You get to gather food, fight other insects, and grow your colony, which is really cool. Sometimes, though, it can feel like you're doing the same thing over and over, and the battles can get a bit confusing with so many ants. But honestly, watching your colony grow and seeing all the different ants work together is super interesting. Plus, the forest environments look really nice, and discovering new areas is always fun.
Let's get this over with.
Unicorn Overlord puts you in charge of a rebel army in a big anime world where you fight to take back your home. It's a strategy game with lots of cool battles and characters.
Be safe.
You get to make your team really strong and the fights look awesome, but sometimes it can be hard to understand what you're supposed to do and you might feel a little lost. If you enjoy anime games and like making plans, you will love this game because it has lots of characters to find and many ways to play. The story is exciting, and seeing your team win is always fun, even if some of the game feels a bit overwhelming. I first played Hollow Knight when it came out back in 2017 on PC, and I totally fell in love with it. It's this awesome 2D action-adventure game where you play as this little knight exploring this huge underground world called Hallownest. The whole game just has this really cool, mysterious vibe with its hand-drawn art style and atmospheric music, and the world is so big and interconnected that you're always discovering something new. The combat is super satisfying too, with tons of different abilities and upgrades you can get to customize your playstyle, and the boss fights are epic and challenging. I loved it so much that when it came out on Switch a year later, I bought it again. And it was just as good the second time around. If you're into games like Metroid or Castlevania, with deep exploration and awesome combat, then you definitely need to check out Hollow Knight. Space Marine 2 is a big action game where you play a super strong space soldier fighting tons of alien bugs. I played this recently and really love the gameplay. It's like you're smashing through waves of enemies with huge guns and a big sword. You feel really powerful, and the battles are super exciting, with lots of explosions and action going on. Sometimes, though, it feels like you're just fighting the same bugs over and over, and it can get a little tiring. But honestly, the feeling of being a Space Marine and just destroying everything in your path is so much fun. It's hard to put the controller down. It's been a while, maybe like 6 years ago, but I still remember playing Unravel and being totally captivated by this tiny yarn creature. The way he moved and interacted with the world was so charming, and I loved how the yarn was used to solve puzzles like creating a swing or rappelling down a cliff. And the environments were stunning. Like, I felt like I was exploring these miniature landscapes with incredible detail and atmosphere. It was really special. Now my memory's a bit fuzzy on some of the specifics, but I do recall some of the puzzles being pretty challenging, and I definitely got stuck a few times trying to figure out what to do. And sometimes I wished Yarny could jump a little further, because there were moments where it felt a bit limited. But overall, it was such a unique and heartwarming experience, and the story, even without any words, was really touching and made me think about all sorts of things. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is a big adventure game, where you play as Ichiban, exploring a new city and getting into wild turn-based fights. It's like a crazy adventure with lots of friends. You get to do all sorts of fun side activities, and the story is really funny and emotional. Sometimes, though, the turn-based fights can feel a bit long, and some side quests can be a bit repetitive. But honestly, the story and the characters are so good, it's hard to put the controller down. Plus, exploring the new city and seeing all the fun things you can do is really exciting. Hi-Fi Rush is a super fun action game where everything moves to the beat of music. I played this recently and really loved the gameplay. It's like you're fighting and jumping in time with the music, and it feels really cool. You get to use a guitar to smash robots, and the whole game looks like a cartoon, which is really neat. Sometimes, though, you might find that some of the levels feel a bit long, and it can be a little tiring to keep up with the beat all the time. But honestly, the music and the action are so much fun, it's hard not to smile while you're playing.
Getting the smackdown!
I haven't actually played this game myself, but my friend can't stop talking about it. It's called Pentiment, and apparently it's this really cool murder mystery set in the 16th century. You play as this artist who gets tangled up in this whole murder investigation and has to find the real killer, and the whole time it's like you're living in this medieval painting with all the characters and the music and everything. The story is super interesting with lots of twists and turns, and you get to make all sorts of choices that actually affect what happens and can even lead to different endings. It's a pretty slow-paced game, though, and there's a lot of reading and talking to people, so if you're looking for something with lots of action, it might not be for you. But if you like history or mysteries or just unique games in general, you should definitely check it out. Little Nightmares 2 is a game that gave me the creeps in the best way possible. It's a puzzle platformer where you play as this little kid named Mono, and you're exploring this really creepy and distorted world with your friend Six. The atmosphere is seriously intense with all these unsettling environments and disturbing characters, and the sound design is amazing. It just adds to the whole creepy vibe. The puzzles are really clever too, and they make you think outside the box, and the platforming is challenging, but not too frustrating. I loved the first Little Nightmares game, and this one definitely lived up to the hype, and I can't wait to see what they do with the next installment in the series, which is supposed to be out sometime in 2025. Okay, so I jumped into Dragon's Dogma 2, and at first I was like, whoa, this is a little rough around the edges, because some things were glitchy and it felt kind of clunky. But you know what? They've been putting out a bunch of patches, and the more I played, the more I got hooked. Seriously, the combat is just so satisfying, especially when you're like climbing up a giant cyclops and stabbing it right in the eye. Plus, the world is huge, and there's always something cool to discover around every corner. And can we talk about the pawns? I love those little guys. They're always there to back you up in a fight, and they actually learn and get stronger as you play, which is really awesome. I will say that some of the quests can get a little repetitive, and the menus are kind of confusing, but honestly, that didn't bother me too much. If you're into action RPGs with a huge world and tons of freedom, you should definitely check out Dragon's Dogma 2.
Onward and upward!
Super Mario Bros. Wonders is like a total explosion of creativity and fun. And honestly, it might be my favorite game on this whole list. It's a classic 2D Mario game, but they've added all these crazy new power-ups and level designs that just make it feel so fresh and exciting. Like there's this one power-up that turns Mario into an elephant, and it's seriously the best thing ever.
That Goomba looks so stupid. Well then.
The levels are all super imaginative and colorful, and the gameplay is just so smooth and satisfying. It's the kind of game that makes you smile the whole time you're playing it, and it's perfect for both new players and longtime Mario fans. If you have a Switch, you absolutely need to check out Super Mario Bros. Wonders. Alright, so I jumped into Metaphor Refantasio, and honestly, I was pretty surprised. Now, I am not a big anime fan, but I'll try to be unbiased in my review and say that this game is actually really good. I played for around 10 hours, and I must say that the gameplay is really amazing. It's got this unique turn-based combat system that keeps you thinking strategically with every move, and the story is surprisingly deep with some really interesting characters that you actually start to care about. The world is beautifully designed too. It's like stepping into a vibrant anime movie, but I will say that the graphics might not be for everyone, and I did find myself getting a little lost sometimes, because the map can be kind of confusing, but overall, I'm really enjoying Metaphor Refantasio, and I think it's definitely worth checking out, even if you're not usually into anime games. Okay, so I jumped back into No Man's Sky, and wow, what a journey it's been. I remember playing this game when it first came out, and yeah, it had a rough launch with everyone complaining about missing features and bugs, but honestly, the developers have been working like crazy, and it's totally different now. It's actually kind of inspiring to see how much they've added. You can build your own bases, explore tons of planets with crazy creatures, and even fly around in space fighting pirates. It's like they took all the feedback to heart and just kept adding more and more. It's actually pretty wild how much this game has changed. Kind of like Cyberpunk, you know? Remember how that launched? Anyway, now you can team up with friends, go on missions, and even play in VR, which is mind-blowing. There's still a few little things that could be smoother, like sometimes the inventory management gets a bit clunky, but overall, No Man's Sky is a great example of how a game can evolve and become something really special.
So good to see you again. You lost consciousness after awakening to your power.
Persona 3 Reload is like a school story mixed with fighting monsters at night. It's a role-playing game where you make friends and fight shadows. You get to live a whole year in this school, hanging out with people and finding out their stories, but then you also go to this big tower and fight spooky things. You know, it's really fun to see your friends get stronger and learn new things, but sometimes the fighting can feel a bit long, especially when you're just doing the same thing over and over. Still, the story and the people you meet make it worth playing, and it feels like you're really part of their world. So I finally got around to playing the new Astrobot game, and it's just as charming as I hoped it would be. This time around, you team up with Astro to explore this amazing theme park, with all sorts of different zones like a spooky castle and an underwater world, and each zone has its own unique challenges and puzzles to solve. I really loved how they used the DualSense controller to add to the experience. Like, you can feel the different textures when you're walking on different surfaces, and the graphics are seriously impressive. It feels like you're playing inside a Pixar movie. My only complaint is that some of the platforming sections can be a little tricky, but honestly, it's nothing too frustrating, and it just makes it even more satisfying when you finally overcome those challenges overall. It's a fantastic game that's perfect for players of all ages. If you're looking for a fun and innovative platformer, then look no further.